it would make perfect sense that sitting down here today would be too much. What was it that recently changed?
Yeah, I mean, doing an interview like this isn't easy, and like I didn't want to do it. There's a lot there that like, do I want to open that can of worms? It's just hard. There are a lot of families in a similar situation, but it was very different in the sense that like my family was on.
Hey everyone, it's Katie from Without a Crystal Ball. Welcome back to my channel. It's Wednesday, May 31st, 2023, and I hope you're having a wonderful day. So there has been so much to talk about when it comes to this brand new docuseries about the Duggars, and I promise we'll get back to Sister Wives soon. So if you're begging for some more Sister Wives content, it's coming. But this new video, I want to talk to you about some interesting details that got dropped about contracts that Jim Bob Duggar had his children sign with TLC Network, and some interesting messages via text that Derek Dillard received, that he claims he received not long after he left the show, or he and Jill left the show, coming from burner phones and directly speaking about him and his defiance of Jim Bob, and how Jim Bob had gifted him a daughter, and how because of that he needed to obey Jim Bob. And the contracts are a result of Jim Bob's years-long relationship with TLC and their show 19 Kids and Counting, and then Counting On. Now, these new details were revealed by the Daily Mail and include actual screenshots of the contracts that were on this Amazon Prime documentary. I have had long-standing conversations with Derek. It wasn't long after the arrest and the conviction of Josh Duggar that he and I were communicating about some of these messages that he had been receiving. So he received on and off for years messages from these phone numbers that were blank phone numbers, and a couple years ago he sent me a copy of them, and the phone number, when we searched it, came up to be a VoIP, like voice over IP number, which is a way to mask a phone number so that people can't contact you, and it's basically like an anonymous number. These specific messages were very dark and very angry towards the behavior that Jill and Derek were portraying and behaving, and the things that they were saying publicly about Jim Bob. And he wasn't sure where these came from. He didn't know if they came from Jim Bob. He just knew that they were referencing Bible verses and talking about atonement, and it was scary. And so he said that he and Jill had been living under these types of intimidations, manipulations, and threats for years. And so it was never easy for them to speak out. And so he said that this could be a reason why some of the other kids don't speak out against the family, because this is what can happen. He couldn't say for sure that these were from Jim Bob, but obviously it looks like it's suspicious. So let's talk about how Jim Bob made $18 million on Counting On. It's reported he made $18 million and pocketed all of the money and paid his children nothing and trapped them into contracts promising their entire lives to a TV show that he made money from. And how Jim Bob and Michelle were signing contracts for their kids even after they became adults. Before we dive into today's topic, can you please do me a big favor and give this video a thumbs up? Also, please subscribe to my channel if you've not yet subscribed by clicking on the subscribe button down below. Make sure to leave a comment if you have something to say. Click on the bell if you'd like to get notified of any time I go live or new content loads, and make sure to share this video with your friends. So the brand new article is about how Jill basically saying that she was taken advantage of by her dad, and that she spent a long part of her 7.5 years of her adult life on reality television making no money. So for some people, they think it's really whiny for Jill and Derek to care about money. But if you were working and this commitment interfered with all other responsibilities in your life and prevented you from having jobs, but you made no money from doing it, I think you'd be angry too. Not to mention, the best shows and the most highest ratings are shows where babies are born and weddings. And therefore, there's cameras in a delivery room whether you want it to be there or not. I mean, who wants a stranger with a camera pointing at your intimate parts while you're in labor? I don't know a lot of women that would like that. The $18 million comes from reports that he made over about 21 seasons. And Jill says that she and her siblings didn't get a dime of it. She says that a day before she got married in 2014, she was like running through her parents' kitchen and she was tricked by her dad into signing a contract, and that she was told she needed to sign something, and they were just trying to get everyone to sign this document. And she said that she wasn't shown what she was signing. She was just given a signature page, and then she just sort of signed it and like went on with her day. She didn't know what she was signing. She just signed it because they asked her to sign it. She said it was just at the end of the kitchen table. I just need you guys to sign these. I didn't know what it was for. She later found out that it was a commitment for her life to the show for the next 5 years. The kids had no direct connection to the network, and evidenced by contracts between the network and Jim Bob, that Mad Family Incorporated, which was the production company LLC that Jim Bob used. So a lot of people were saying, and I got a message and they said, oh, I didn't know that Jim Bob had a production company. Jim Bob didn't really have a production company. What happens is when someone has a reality show, the reality show will not pay a family unless they pay through a business. And so families that are on these shows are told by networks to open a LLC where the talent company will pay to the network, to this LLC, and then the LLC that they pay into is responsible to basically pay out to the people that are a part of that production company. So basically what it does is it takes all responsibility off of the production company from managing individual contracts of all the different people on the show, and instead puts everyone in one contract and everyone under one production company, the family, and it assumes that parents are going to do the right thing and share the money and pay their kids. And unfortunately, we've seen this over and over and over again, that parents simply don't pay their kids. And there are literally no requirements at all for reality show people to actually be paid kids. There's no safeguards for children on reality television. And Jim Bob likened their participation in the show to being one of like being on a documentary and volunteering their time. Now, they actually showed the signature pages, and it shows how Jim Bob was able to sign for his children that were underage, how Anna was able to sign for her children that were underage, and that how Michelle was able to sign for some of her kids that were underage, and that Jill was asked to sign this, and she signed it on 6/20 of 2014. So when she ended up getting pregnant, she said that she did not want to have cameras in her delivery room. And the production company said that they had a contract that she was going to give them her birth. So, or that she had promised, her life. And here's the thing, there's actually a stipulation in this contract that they have a right to do whatever they want and exploit the footage in any way that they see fit. So even though they have exploitation literally written in the contract. So because she had signed that contract the day before her wedding and she didn't realize that's what it was for, she had to basically relent and allow them to give her cameras to film. She didn't want anyone in the room. She didn't want them filming. So she set up tripods and they filmed the birth. And then once she had the footage, they contacted her again and basically said, okay, we need the footage. And she says, I don't want to give you the footage. Can we get paid? And they basically are saying, well, we paid the family. And that means that they weren't going to get paid. So Jim Bob had been paid by the production company for the footage, and so they were supposed to go to Jim Bob to get paid, but Jim Bob didn't pay his kids. So she handed over all that footage, and Jim Bob made all the money off that birth, and they raked in a ton of ratings for that. And I was actually looking back at the episodes, and every season there was a wedding, and almost every season there were births, and so obviously those were well. And the very last episode the Duggars ever filmed, he was able to capitalize on Kendra's birth. The last birth, the third child that she had of Brooklyn, that was filmed, and it was on the very last episode. So even as they were leaving the network and going out, he still capitalized on his son's wife having a baby. So when they made the decision to become missionaries, they went to Central America, and cameras there had followed them. But again, they weren't getting paid while they were down there. And Derek and Jill actually admit that at times while the show was on the air and while their dad was, Jim Bob was making, like I said, estimated $18 million total, they were living on food stamps. So she had to request food stamps through the state. So she's a reality star. Everyone's known her since she's been 14 or 12 or 13, whatever it was. And in order to feed her kids, she's using food stamps. So Jim Bob was exploiting his kids to the extent that his kids couldn't even afford to feed their children, because all other commitments to life were like, they were committed to the show first and foremost. And so they had to drop whatever they were doing, regardless if they had a job, if they wanted to go take a vacation. They had no choices, and the company could say, you need to come back. Apparently TLC was tired of being there, and they wanted them to go back to the United States to shoot. They had made a commitment to this organization to help in Central America, and they ended up having to relent it because Jim Bob apparently sent them a copy of the signature page and told them they needed to get back into the United States. They had committed their lives to the show, and that's it. Like, they didn't have a choice. When you look at the actual contracts, it's kind of concerning because it says that all of these kids fall under Mad Family, right? And that Mad Family's on one side and Discovery Talent is on the other side. And they're considered a lender. So it says, on the other hand, regarding lenders' furnishing of personal services of participants in connection with a series of episodes. So they're investing money into this. They're considered a lender. And then they're, as talent, considered like a commodity. And so they're borrowing against what the company is going to put out. And so if they film footage and they can't air it, they're going to want to make sure to protect that return on investment. If they've spent a ton of money filming and they can't air that, they're out that money. And the family can end up having to foot the bill, they might not get reimbursed for the money that they spent. And so there's an incentive for them to make sure the show airs. And that's what Jim Bob had to do, is he had to make sure the show aired and find a way to minimize what happened. It even said that any other children that were born to Jim Bob and Michelle would be basically property of and deemed a participant of the show. So any child that was born would actually be, their life would be promised to TLC. It's absolutely insane when you think about it. So Jill and Derek had been promised to this, and then also revealed is that Michelle was apparently signing these documents and signing these contracts even after her children turned legal age. She had been signing all of these contracts as though she was the guardian, and once they became adults, she was apparently forging their names on these contracts. And these contracts were so severe. Like, Derek was trying to explain, like, we couldn't have jobs because the show wanted us for everything. They're not getting paid. So when they finally leave the show, Derek says it's not long after that he starts getting a series of threatening text messages, and here's sort of a synopsis of what they say. Whoever rewards evil for good, evil will not depart from his house. Is this what you want? JB has done you no evil, and you have done him great evil. God always sends a prophet before judgment comes. You could repent, Derek, before it's too late. A prophet? So is Jim Bob a prophet? As a son-in-law, Jill's parents are also yours, and biblically, whatever you do to them is the same as your own parents. The mistreatment of parents is forbidden in both the Old and New Testament, with death penalties ascribed to those violations and wrong actions to parents, and the reverse promise that things will not go well for you. So, atonement through death, because he was not obeying Jim Bob because he decided to leave the show. Now, we don't know if these came from Jim Bob, but they came after he left the show. It is so bizarre. And he said, as his son, scripture bars you from speaking against him publicly. Love covers all sins. JB or Michelle have never done you wrong, nor Jill. You are returning evil for the unbelievable privilege of marrying their most beautiful and intelligent daughter, who is the fruit of their lives. You were trusted. You are a trusted man to be. You are trusted and given the high privilege of courting and married their treasured daughter, godly, well-trained, talented, and capable. Never was there a girl like Jill. So they're basically telling Derek that we gave you a gift of our daughter. We trained her. She's godly and she's capable. And so therefore you shouldn't be speaking out negatively against us, because you could get killed. And it's not biblical. And the Bible says that if you are not good to your parents, we'll kill you. When asked in the documentary if these came from Jim Bob, he said he would not speculate. But I feel like sharing these and sort of tying this as like, I quit the show and then I started getting these messages, tells me that there could be some belief that they're at least from Jim Bob or someone connected to him. And it seems like it's a way to be very threatening without putting your name on it so that you can't get arrested. It seems like a way to avoid any level of accountability because you're using a burner phone number. And it just seems too coincidental, in my opinion. And then when Josh's conviction happened and Derek spoke out against Jim Bob, he received similar threats like this, with death as again, being threatened with being killed for speaking out against Jim Bob. And I received a copy of them, and we spent days trying to figure out where this number came from. We couldn't figure out where they were from. It was horrible. And I remember him and Jill were so scared. And I think, like, how does a family co-sign this kind of behavior? Like, their children don't want to be on a show, so they're going to murder them or threaten them with murder. So it puts their children in a place where they feel like they're going to get killed if they don't do something for their parents. Like, that to me is monstrous. And I just hope that at some point, all of this evidence that they have is collected and provided to, like, the FBI or to the police. And maybe they can figure out who has been sending these messages, because these are legitimate threats. It's horrible. And Jim Bob is doing this to his own children, allegedly, maybe, although Derek won't speculate. I can't fathom this culture that is so ingratiated in authority for a father to feel like he can do this to a child because they've dared to speak out against them. And because Jim Bob is so obsessed with his image, he's gonna maybe have a friend or him through burner phones threaten to kill his son-in-law. Who forces their children into contracts for shows and then doesn't pay them? And then their kids can't even afford life, and so they have to go on food stamps to feed their kids. That's what Jim Bob did. This is a man that said that he never used welfare, and yet his kids had to survive off welfare while they were filming because they couldn't have regular jobs. Asinine. And now I want to be clear. This is why Cody's kids are not involved in the show. They were not paid either. Cody Brown and Sister Wives, those kids weren't paid either. Cody Brown has done the same crap to his kids. So anytime you watch one of these shows on TLC, just remember that all of those cute moments of the kids come at a high price of exploitation. And there needs to be some sort of laws put into place for children on reality television and on YouTube so that they aren't exploited. Children cannot consent, and it's up to parents to make that decision, and parents that are narcissists are never going to do anything in the best interest of their children. So what are your thoughts about this new information? Tell me in the comments below. Bye, guys.